feel like you're starting your life all over again. And he said, then now there's no way back. So it's a little bit like this, right? You come into this country, then there is no way back. You got to deal with what you have. The third thing is you need to understand that immigration, one of the most harsh immigration around the world is the United States. She ended up not being detained by ICE.
Today, we are going to talk about immigration, not just as a system or a set of rules, but as something people actively have to navigate, build, and sometimes even invent. Asif, welcome.
Thank you for welcoming me. Thank you very much for having me.
Sure. So can you start by introducing yourself?
Yes, very simple. My name is Asif Arif. I'm an attorney, originally from France and moved to the United States. I try to keep my French identity as much as possible, although I have this tendency of being diluted into the US one, but I do maintain a very proud French identity. So I'm originally a lawyer from France, moved to the US, specialized in immigration, in mobility in between those two countries, and work with variety of profiles regarding immigration.
Thank you, Asif. And was this something you always planned to work in the US as an attorney?
So I'll give you a little bit of the story behind it, right? And you will tell me if it was planned or not. I sort of become a lawyer in Paris in 2014. And when my first job was in mergers and acquisitions and has nothing really to do with the immigration law. And then after what I did is from what I remember, because it's quite far back, I stayed 7 months, I think, into that law office. And I left for a very much more smaller, I was in a very huge law firm. And then I went to a very much smaller office where I learned how to litigate cases. And in France still, right? And I was like, what the hell am I doing here? Because I'm originally doing mergers and acquisition. I'm litigating like small cases and I'm going to criminal court and all these things. And then I was like, you know what, let me start my own firm, right? And that was a year and a half into being a lawyer. So it's pretty early, right? People do not generally start their own business at that level of maturity into the law field. It's generally considered as a field where you grew through experience. And I grew through my mistakes because I made that mistake to start my own law firm. It's a mistake, but it's also a great way of learning on a fast pace. So I started my own law firm, and this is where I pretty much clients specialized me in immigration because I was doing a lot of immigration law. And I end up doing a lot of immigration cases, litigated cases that almost went in front of the first two phases of the European Court of Human Rights as well. We've litigated different type of cases on religious freedom, different kind of, civil liberties as well as immigration. And in 2020, when COVID hit, I decided to, explore another possibility of having a license. And United States came into my mind, came into the US. And then the question happened again, right? Once I have my license, what am I going to do? Maybe I'm going to work for somebody here, a law office, an immigration law here in the US, built up some experience, and, maybe then I will start my own law office. But I decided to repeat my mistakes in the past, which was start my own law firm at a very young age. So I started my own law office, and it's working well. And today we're a good amount of people working together. And although it was mistakes in the past, made me learn the hard way, got a few gray hairs, but still here with a law firm that is operational and working.
Very interesting, Asif. So you're an example of someone who's able to create your own firm here very quickly, and as an immigrant yourself. Was there a moment where you realized how different or how complex the systems are between France and the US? Is it something you anticipated, or this is something you discovered once you got here?
There's a thing that happens when you move to another country where roads feel different, people seems different, and you know that very well as well, Solet. I know that. And you feel that the way you learn things are completely offset by this new society that you're coming in, and where you almost feel like not really a fresh start because you're so used to the status, the whatever you had in France, for example, right? Where I had a fairly established life there too, right? With the great law offices, you go to France 24, and I had like this random dynamic that was there, right? And I was born and raised, all my friends, and it's sort of like you uproot yourself from that and you come into a country where everything is different. Like the legal system in itself, France is based mostly on Roman law. Here it's common law. It's completely two different vision and two different method of seeing rules, regulations. The political system is different. The method of making laws is different. The analytical method of law is also very much different. He's a case precedent based law here in the US. In France, it's a codification with a lot of regulations and all that directly into a codes where you can take the source from. Those two, it's completely opposite type of society, laws, rules, regulation, and you sort of need to start your life almost, you feel like you're starting your life all over again, right? And that was tough on me. That was really really tough on me because I felt like when I moved from France, I was 8 year experience, and I felt like I'm gonna start all the way again, back to first year, right? And sitting for exam, and that was funny because when I used to go, I didn't pass the bar the first time, right? It took me a couple of times to do it. That's also a great thing for some people that really want to focus into the state bar. Do not lose hope. Just do it again and again. When I was sitting for the bar, I was like the only guy who was like 35 plus with all these other young guys, 24, 25. And it feels like I'm really coming back. I'm really taking a huge step back. That was also tough on me, but I think, I don't know, it somehow worked okay where I waited a long time. I didn't lose too much hope because sometimes it's hard on your mental toll as well, right? It takes up some of your mental energy, but I stay consistent, I would say. Try to stay consistent as much as possible. And now much better because we are into this, coming into the 4 or 5 years span of this law office lifetime, which is a big milestone to achieve. And that's a good milestone to achieve. I mean, you're establishing your presence. So it's good. To respond to your question, because I went a little bit further, uh, it's a strange feeling to come into a country where you do not know anything. But for people like you or like me, if we do maintain the right mentality, which is no, I need to get my things together and sort of figure it out, right, and move forward with it, and I have no way back, right. It reminds me this great story that people used to tell me. It was like I think it's somebody that came to conquer Spain. I don't know if our Spanish friend will be happy with this, but they came for conquering Spain, and when they come on their boat, he just lit the boat on fire, and he said, "Then now there is no way back." So it's a little bit like this, right? You come into this country, then there is no way back. You got to deal with what you have, and it's tough. It's difficult. Sometimes it's very hard emotionally and all that, but you need to keep yourself together and just move forward. And I think that help. I think I discussed that with multiple time with you. I think faith help a lot, and it's all this conjunctions of all these different things that made it happen. But it's very very different. Like it, I know it. France has nothing to deal with, right? Just the board signs are completely different. The you need to take your driver's license again. You need to do everything again, like you're coming back to your 16 years old time, right? So it's tough.
You mentioned the driver's license, but there is also lodging, the healthcare system, and so on. Obviously, the visa, and we'll dive into this later. But it's a personal journey that you're going through that requires not only perseverance, but really believing in what you're doing and why you're doing what you're doing. I really wanted to ask you, since you are an immigrant yourself, do you think this is something appealing to your clients? The fact that you can actually relate to their stories and to what they're dealing with, instead of being someone who was born and raised in this country and helping in immigration law. Would you say that your experience actually is helping the way you are guiding and providing advice and supporting your clients?
I think it does. An example of that would be a call that I received a few days ago. And this mother called me from France and tells me that I have a problem. My daughter is in jail. She's in Texas somewhere. And I have no idea what's going on. Right? And I find you online. I know you're from France. I know you can understand the French system. I need you to help me to figure it out, right? And it was both parents. They were trying to figure out why their daughter had this issue going on in Texas. And they figured out like quite a bit of the system, right? How it was working, the DA and the hearings and all these things. But they were still unsure, and this DA told the parents that, hey, your daughter will be right after her dismissal hearing. She will be picked up by ICE, right? The famous ICE that picked up people and picked up the immigrant and lock you in, and you wait for your detention and you go through the immigration judge and all that. So the thing is, most of the lawyers here in the United States, lawyers who are francophone and they were born and raised in France, for example, like lawyers who have like a strong foothold in France, they will not really go in front of immigration judges. You will most likely see them doing visa and mostly high-ended visa, right? Talent visa, O1 visa, EB1A, EB2NIWs, and all those fancy stuff, right? But they won't go to immigration judge. They won't do asylum. They won't do all those things that made a lawyer. I feel like, right? You go in court and you object and all these things. So I have not passionated by the thing. Like I'm gonna go every day in immigration court, and I'll be super happy and super excited, specifically at this time when we have that type of presidency, which makes immigration court very difficult. But I do entertain the desire to defend somebody at the full length possible, right? And to have that idea of what is gonna happen to the person if he goes to that extreme, which is immigration court. And so therefore this French parents call me and say, you know it, you were a lawyer here, you're a lawyer there, so can you tell us what's going on and all that? Explain to them. And what happened at the end is they asked me, okay, so are we sure that our daughter is going to go through ICE and she's going to go through detention? And told them, no, it's not sure. And she ended up not being detained by ICE, actually, and being released and, continuing her life into the US as much as possible. She has a multiple challenge ahead. It's not like a free path, but she's not detained at least, right? And so that representation at the end, those parents were very grateful, and they said, look, you helped us so much understanding and, bridging those differences. And that's exactly what we're trying to do, right? Is to explain people that when you come to the US, the way you come, the method of you staying here, the method of you applying for an application and to seek eligibility is very much different than what you will encounter in France. So another funny thing is very often, I have like some of my friends who used to be entrepreneur, who is still entrepreneur in France. They're like, oh, okay, in France, you go there, you work a little bit for somebody illegally, and within few months you can apply for what we call exceptional admission to au séjour, and then everybody's happy and the employer has some employee and the government get the taxes and everybody's good. But in the US it's not even conceivable, right, to have like just somebody coming in working illegally and just having like his immigration settled down. So all these guys are like, hey, you know what, I'm going to come under my ESTA, I'm going to stay, I'm going to just work here and there, and you could just apply for the green card at one point. And I tried to tell them that this is not France, right? This is not going to be possible. You got to do it right. And that's all those like little everyday kind of things that you have with French people that sometimes they don't understand it. But the good thing is they do contact a lawyer before making stupid decision like coming into with an ESTA and staying there. So it's good in a way that we can advise them, guide them. And definitely, I think when they see that I was originally from their neighborhood, for example, in France, or I'm from, originally I'm a lawyer there, so I understand the legal system there, they feel more comfortable retaining me into a matter where they don't know anything about.
Very interesting. Actually, I wanted to ask you, so obviously you're dealing with people with very different needs, right? In your everyday practice, how how does it really happen? Do people just reach out to you, or at which points do they contact you for advice? Ideal world, you come prepared, you anticipate everything, you contact an immigration attorney first and before starting anything else. But you and I know that it's usually not the case. So how does it work for you, your firm, and how do you handle the variety of cases, and what do they
So
ask
as
you?
there is variety of cases, there is variety of personalities. You, for example, you will take stuff very ahead of time. You will make sure that you have all the paper. You'll come ahead of time. You will say, "This is my strategy. This is what I want to do." Great. This is your personality. You have hands on everything, single matter. Other people do not necessarily do that. Some people, they're like, oh, attorney will be expensive. Why am I going to spend some money in there? I'm going to do the application myself. I'm going to go on ChatGPT and I'm going to try to figure out my application myself. The thing is, that happened to me recently where a lady, she filed for a national interest waiver, AB2, a very specific category of green card. And she got right away a notice with an intent to deny. And she retained me at that level, right, where there is a notice and the government is planning to deny the case. So we can also, you see, this is very much far ended into the case, right? And there's other cases where, for example, when it's immigration court, people will come to you a week, 2 weeks before their first hearing, and they'll say, hey, we need a lawyer. We don't have any choice. So would you be able to represent us, right? So there is variety of people. But due to the nature of our work, because we do a lot of marriage-based investors or O visa, those visa you need to, but as a matter of law, you need to be prepared because you have an application that is filed beforehand, right? And that application needs to be prepared, needs to be, and generally people do look around those applications and they're like, oh, okay, I need to seek some level of eligibility. They don't really know where or how, but they know that they need to prepare it, right? To move forward. So they generally contact us a little bit ahead. But even in those applications, sometimes people do rush us up a lot. We have a recent case where the person just finishes one of his status and now wants to convert it into an E2 and have just a window of 15 to 20 days, right? So that's tough sometimes to, you know, squeeze everything within those period of time. And it generally result in not great quality work. So we dislike doing this, but when we have to, we do it. But mostly where you will see a little bit of like lack of engagement, lack of prosecution with the lawyer for actually, looking through the cases and all that are generally cases where detention is involved, immigration court is involved, or there is something that happened like a drastic decision from the government, like an intent to deny or a big request for evidence, which discuss the eligibility. This is when people will go through a lawyer because they already spent so much money. They will be like, okay, we risk losing all of our money, so might as well try to put all our chances on our end. So that's when they actually go through the lawyer.
How would how would you explain why it matters so much to have an immigration attorney and to choose the right one? I would imagine that to avoid paying an attorney, people would think, okay, through AI, through my own, research, why can't I just fill the form myself? So that why shouldn't I be able to do that on my own? Can you explain the audience why it matters so much in the process of immigration, changing status, marriage based, or for to have the accurate information as well and options?
Yeah. This is a good question. I mean, like when I know I'm suffering or I have an illness, I can go on ChatGPT and check it out, and try to figure it out. But I will go to my doctor at the end of the day because I know this is the professional that is going to actually give me medical advice, right? Similarly, for any law petition, you can go on ChatGPT and figure it out. But at the end of the day, you might want to go through an attorney that is a professional for giving you legal advice. Because first of all, ChatGPT hallucinate a lot. Second of all, you will never have the approach that you want or the satisfaction that you want besides going to a professional that deal with that on a bigger scale level, right? The third thing is you need to understand that immigration, one of the most harsh immigration around the world is the United States. So it's very difficult to qualify for a visa in the United States. If you take the O visa, very subjective, you can be extremely talented and still yet get denied. You can have a lot of investment sometimes. I'm going to give you the example of a person that applied for an E visa. So this person put a lot of money in his bank account, right? And went with that premise that, look, I have a lot of money in my bank account. Why my e visa will be denied? And it was denied on multiple conditions, right? On multiple condition of E, because E follow a very specific structure that you need to follow. So at the end of the day, you end up paying the lawyer, wasting some fees, getting denied, getting into a situation when you have a denial. And remember that denial in the United States do act as an adverse record. So the immigration will look through it, and it's not good overall. You lose your money, you lose time, you lose energy on focusing on stuff other than your actual field where you could focus, you could have less stress and all that. So yes, lawyers are expensive. That's true. It comes with a certain price. Specifically, U.S. immigration is a little bit more on the expensive end than the French one, but it's a lot of responsibility for lawyers as well. You need to understand that we have a tremendous amount of liability. It's called the state bars that police us whenever we do something, even the small comma wrong, and they come and they do disciplinary action. So that's sort of like an experience comes with experience has a monetary value in front of it, right? So specifically in the U.S., everything has a monetary value. So you do end up paying a lawyer, but it does bring a lot of level of benefit for your time, for an officer time as well. Look, an officer might find you ineligible because he has to go through a random way of you presenting the documents that he disliked, right? Generally, lawyers knows how to exhibit documents, how to present them, what are your pros in the case, what are the cons in the case, and how are we going to argue this? Are we going to use this criteria? Are we going to use the other criteria? What is the policy memo of USCIS about this specific criteria? What is the current view of the government about one specific petition? So if you used to file EB2 and IW during the time of Biden, you had 80% of chances. Now you have 45% of chances with the Trump government. That's also a big difference. But by the way, that I would like to mention in here is that in France, and that's for our French followers. I don't want to make it feel like it's tailored to French people, or in Europe in general, we can say that people think that maybe if the government change, but the law remain the same, and you have the famous saying in France that say the government can change, but the administration remains the same. But here in the U.S., when the government change, the entire administration change and the policy change and the memos change and their view of a petition that was very liberal at one point becomes very conservative the next month, right? And that's what you face when you face a change of government in the US. So therefore, you need to be extra careful sometimes in really securing a lawyer and trying to put all the chances on your side.
You just mentioned how the different administrations is also impacting immigration law. But before that, we started mentioning a few visas. There are so many different categories, and you actually published a book that really clarifies these different options. And can you walk us through the different visas that exist today so that everybody can understand the type of visa that may interest them or the kind of category and what it entails?
Yeah, I think let's first clarify one thing, which is the work visa, right? Because a lot of people made that mistake thinking, hey, I come in the US, I will get a work visa and that will be it, right? It doesn't work that way. America has a very, very protectionist policy of the employment here. And therefore, most of the visa, which is based on H visa, H-1Bs and all that, are partially related with, I forgot the word in English, but it's, when you have a random selection. So lottery based, that's the word I was looking for, lottery based. So if they're lottery based, I mean like 50% of your chances are off, right? You might or you might not get selected. And once you get selected, you still need to go through the USCIS and they will review the petition and they will make requests for evidence and all these things. The working in the US is not easy. You either have the H-1B or you have the extraordinary ability, O visa, or you have the E visa where you invest money into the US. Those are like approximately most of the visa that you can use. There is a J1 visa as an intern that's also used quite a lot by French people. They come as an intern and they just like stay there and they then try, they're like, oh, my internship is gonna be done in 18 months. How can I maintain my status? How can I change and all that? They end up marrying a American citizen because that's the only way to stay long term here, right? So that's how difficult it is to be in the US. To find a job, to find a visa that allows you to work in the US is not easy. That's the first premise you need to understand. Second category is family based application. So if you are married or if you are a son or daughter less than 21 years old of a US citizen, then it's royal for you. You'll have a great deal with the American immigration. Or if you are even a parent of a US citizen, because the US citizen can petition his parents too. Can petition siblings. Siblings will take about 14 to 15 years before getting their green card, so it's a very backlog category. And there is also different other type of family based petition without entering in too much details, but family immigration remains one important bulk of how you can come in the US. For French people, asylum is out of the way unless they're being persecuted by the French government. Emmanuel Macron used a hammer and pursued you in France every day. So other than this, no possibility for you to get any sort of asylum claim is because you're in a secured country. But for other citizenship, yeah, asylum, TPS, and all these other type of protection remains something that you can claim affirmatively or defensively if you're in front of the immigration court. And then after you left with, so we did this work visa with EO and all these things, the family-based visa, and the asylum. There's not much left, right? And this, don't forget for people who are watching us that this non-immigrant immigrant distinction, right, in the US that plays a big trouble for some people because some visa are dual intent, some are non-dual intent, some are dual intent but acceptable dual intent, some are dual intent but non-acceptable dual intent. So it's all those differences that makes case extremely technical and extremely complicated sometimes in the United States. So that's a great, very broad overview of what we can do. And then you have the possibility for some people. So if, for example, you work in a field that would potentially benefit the United States government, right? If you work in renewable energies or you invented something very specific that will create some business in the US, then you can apply for what we call a NIW, National Interest Waiver, and you can get your green card based on that. But not an everyday kind of things. You need to really qualify for it. Then you have extraordinary ability, EB1A. If you're an athlete, if you're a singer or like a big business person, you can try to qualify for it.
You mentioned a lot of cases with French applicants, but do you also work with other nationalities? And so would you say that the way people approach immigration is slightly different depending on their country and the expected outcomes as well?
Yes, definitely. French people have another way of approaching immigration, which is a little bit, you can say, lackadaisical, careless a little bit. So that you need to bring a little bit more structure, when you talk to them, that this is important, right? Other nationality is a little bit different, right? I work with Pakistanis, Indian, because I speak Pakistani and Hindi, Urdu and Hindi more specifically. They have a different approach and they have different eligibility category as well. So the entire scope is different based on how or which immigration category you're gonna, type into. But we have a few Europeans countries as well where it's a different mentality. I mean, like every person has a different mentality. We just need to be a good job in advising them on this is what you need to do to get to the final point, right? If you want a reasonable chances of approval. If you don't, it's neither in your interest nor in mine. So we need to work through together in order to get to the results, right? And yeah, they have a different approach. French have a different approach, but it's weird. It's not. I cannot like explain it, exactly on how they approach it differently. But I think it's directly related to your culture, to your, also your approach of life in general. If you're more hands-on, less hands-on, it all depend on what's your personality.
And so before you mention USCIS, can you clarify what USCIS does, why it matters, and how you also prepare your clients to go through this.
So the Congress in the US has given an authority to one federal agency called USCIS to adjudicate a certain amount of petitions. So these people, they're here, they are specialized, their field offices are specialized depending on which category of visa you're going to apply. Those people are specialized. So if you think that, hey, I'll just throw an investor visa, what does the immigration officer knows about it, right? But they do know about it. And they do know what they will be doing with your petition, right? So they're specialized. They have jurisdiction to adjudicate a certain amount of case. And once the case is being adjudicated, either they approve it or they deny it. Sometimes they can also refer the case, meaning they can send it to the immigration court who have a final say. Removability cannot be decided by USCIS. So an immigration officer cannot decide whether ICE officer has to come pick you up and remove you from the country. That is the jurisdiction of an immigration court. So they can defer the decision to the immigration court, and the immigration court will take that decision of removability. They will find you removable, and then they will see if there is any defense. If you have defense, great. If you don't have defense, then you're removable by law, and they're going to take an order and they're going to ask to execute that order, right? So that's a little bit the dynamic, very, very largely we can speak, because then there is some petition that is exclusively being dealt by USCIS. Even immigration court cannot review them. For example, it's called VAWA, it's called U visa. Those are like generally a very strong hold of USCIS, but still the removability remains with the immigration court. So sometimes you have a situation where people are in between both, right? They, for some reason, they end up in front of immigration court, but they have the U visa with USCIS. So how are we going to manage those? So all these things are generally speak to each other, but in a very procedural and technical language, and that's what lawyers are here for, to sort of speak that language on behalf of the client. And this is what USCIS does. It adjudicate cases based on the eligibility you're seeking.
And so you mentioned the eligibility, we mentioned visa, and obviously an immigration lawyer is playing such a major role in this life-changing decision and moments. Can you clarify the difference between visas that are temporary with their own, eligibility and pathway to get, but there's also the green cards, always seen as, the trickiest to get. How can you describe these two different path for the audience understanding better the immigration and how this works in the US?
It's a different of optic, right? If you plan to remain permanently in the US, the threshold is a little bit higher, specifically for economical petition or extraordinary ability based. Threshold is much higher because the US government wants to keep in the US people with very, very high talent, with a small percentile of people that are excelling into their field of endeavor and all that. If you're not, then it's going to be a little bit more difficult for you. You can also, some people want to come in the US only for a few years. So I have a lot of entrepreneurs who come to me and they say, look, we're not planning to stay here for a long time. We're planning to stay here for just few years, develop our business, and then we need to go back to our country because we have other fish to fry, right? We're not going to stay in the US. So this is the perfect definition of non-immigrant, right? Temporary visa, where you come, you work, and you go back. Now, some people come with the idea that they're not going to remain permanently and then change their intent while remaining permanently, right? And then they need to apply for a green card. And remember that America loves those temporary type of application, because even if you get green card, you sometimes get a temporary, right? Where they put a little bit of a sword hanging on top of your head, waiting to see where you're going to collapse, right? Why? Is because the U.S. government love to see. So you will say, hey, I'm married. I am eligible for a green card. So, oh, yeah, you're eligible for a green card. Yes, of course, we're going to give you a green card. But the permanent residency is 10 years. We're going to give you 2 years. You wonder why? I'm married with a green card holder. Yes, your marriage is less than 2 years. We're going to put a little bit of a gray area there, just to make sure that you're not entering into a sham marriage, right? And you're doing a real marriage and it's not a fraud. And then after 2 years, you apply for removing the condition on your green card, and this is another process. They do the same with investor. So if you know that there is a green card with $1 million of investment, right? You're gonna invest, and you're gonna say, okay, prospectively, within the next 2 years, I'm gonna hire those 20 people. They'll say, okay, if it's only prospective, sword hanging on top of your head. We're just going to give you a conditional green card. We're going to wait and see. If you fulfill your commitment, we'll fulfill ours. And we know today on the international scene how much United States is faithful to its commitment, right? So we got to see that in the overall perspective, is that America loves to not give you 10 years green card. They love to put you on hold somewhere, right? Specifically with this administration, giving the conditional is being loved, right? Because that way you control a little bit the immigration. And if within those 2 years of conditional residency you commit any crime, big trouble is coming up for you, right? Because you're gonna have to seek waiver, try to remove those, explain why, and even a DUI sometimes can be a big trouble. So all these things come into play with the green card as well. So we just need to be careful out there. That's it.
I'd like to take a moment to connect this discussion to what's happening right now, because indeed things are changing. What recent developments in U.S. immigration policy and practice have stood you out?
I mean, he blocked half of the world from coming into the U.S., right? 73 countries, just like this. No immigrant visa, no non-immigrant visa, just with an executive order. So I think it will take time to cope with all these things, because first of all, we don't know. So if you think about Trump presidency as a whole, he's sworn in. The first thing he did, he paused all adjudication on asylum. He reinstalled the ban in many, many countries. Not only he reinstalled the ban, he said, oh my God, World Cup is coming. Let me ban all those countries that potentially will come under B1 and change their status. So he banned like most of African countries, most of Muslim countries, let's say that way, and most of third world countries, basically. And he's giving, statements that why don't we get people from Finland, and why do we get like always people from Africa, and all these, straight up racist statement, right, that he's giving. So that's that's how immigration has changed substantially. I mean, like, it's day and night. Now, also, like, when you didn't see how immigration court is going. I mean, like, it's completely crazy. The judges have closed, DHS have, like, closed to all power. They are now they created, like, it's going to be too long to enter into all those technicalities. But if you enter illegally into this country, you're done. There's no point of you can voluntarily remove yourself. Like, honestly, you can voluntarily depart from the country. There's no point, right? Because they're going to bring so much exception upon exception, and they're going to say, look, you need to be removed. Recently, they removed people in Angola, although they're not from Angola. They removed people in different African countries, although they're not from there, right? You see what happened to some United States citizens. They've been removed and called back by a judge thereafter. I mean, like, it's completely chaos, that's for sure. In this chaos, what I want to give as a message for people is that it's the chaos. This is the right way to name it. But E2 is still getting approved in France. E1 are still getting approved in the US. EB1A are still getting approved in the US. In fact, you're getting your green card much more faster if you're married to a US citizen, and your interview is coming in the record delay, very, very fast. Now that he banned half of the world, if you look at the visa bulletin, the dates are moving so fast. Like, everything is becoming current because the USCIS officer have nothing else to do besides adjudicating the case that are here. And they're not, taken over burdened by all these other petitions coming in and making adjudication and all that. So there is some good side of it, and there is a bad side of it, right? So, but remember that immigration has not stopped just because of this, as well as when we get Jordan Bardella saying random stuff on TV in France. French immigration doesn't stop. Immigration just continues its way of living. There's petitions that are harder, there's petitions that are easier, and this is how it is. And you should just maintain your whatever you decided to do. You should just maintain it. Try to also not listen to, not that I would say not self-panic yourself by listening a lot of media and all that, and that will create an automatically a panic inside you. Oh my God, I'm going to be picked up by ICE. I'm going to be having this. I'm going to be, although all these things in 80% of the cases are not happening, right? Routine and business as usual. Just be, keep yourself together and just keep your objective in mind, what you want to do, and just apply for your immigrant benefit and get yourself a good lawyer, and that lawyer will help you to go through it and get your case approved.
Would you say that these changes for those who are still eligible have been slightly different to prepare? Did it impact any visa category, or did it impact the way you prepare your clients today versus 3-4 years ago?
Yeah, definitely. You have what we call the practice of RFEs, the request for evidence, in almost every single cases. I mean, like I think in the couple of months, one or two cases, I got it without RFEs. Otherwise, every single case get an RFE. Strong cases, they got an RFE. So be just ready to fight the eligibility. Just be ready to. That is not going to be an easy route, but you will get there. But it's just going to be a little tough.
And can you clarify what is this request of evidence, what it means, what it entails, and why it exists?
So generally speaking, when you file an application for a certain eligibility or a relief application, what happened is that the USCIS will receive it. So this federal agency that we talk about will receive it, start working on it, and give you potentially in the middle of the review process will say, hey, you know what, I need more documents. In France, what happened is you go on the interview in the prefecture and you arrive and they say, hey, no, I need XYZ document. And you're like panicking on the day of the, do I have them on me or no? USCIS does not do it like this. They send you a mail where they say, hey, I need this document. In that sense, it's a little bit more organized. So they ask you for X, Y, and Z document, and they send it to provide it to you, and this is called request for evidence. You can put it as request for additional document, additional evidence. And this is becoming a very regular pattern with the U.S. immigration law. You will pretty much always receive one RFE in every single case. And once you receive it, you need to respond to it within a certain period of time. And then after they approve, they can do another request for evidence, or they can deny it. Right? Or they can do a notice with an intent to deny and deny it 30 days later. So all these things are all taken all together. It creates that situation where it makes this stuff much more complicated because 3 years before, if your case was strong, it was going to an approval directly. There's no need to wait for request for evidence. If your case is strong, your eligibility is there, you will get your approval. Now, even if the case is strong, they're like, hey, tell us what more you have for us. And it's becoming like a little bit of a bullying strategy, right? Where people immigration just bully you with this request for evidence. And you just need to comply, you just need to respond, you just need to be thorough and then generally go through.
Do you have an example of a case where one pathway didn't work, one application got denied, and you said that being denied, it's something that is obviously weakening your case, but did you navigate with one client different options that ended up being successful?
There is variety of situation where you can you can get an adverse decision and then you get a good decision back. I'm thinking about an e-visa where we filed, it got denied on the consular level because they decided that the condition were not met. And then we work on the condition and we refiled thereafter. And although there was this adverse denial before, it got approved. I had one marriage-based case where we were pretty sure the eligibility was 100% there. The bona fide marriage was 100% there. Still, the officer denied. That was at Biden time, where there was no interview. They denied the case based on evidence on the record that, we don't think that this is a real marriage, right? We refiled with a bunch of documents, and again, the same length. It was a strong case originally, made it slightly stronger, maybe added few evidence, and it went through during Trump time. So how weird is that, right? We always think maybe Trump was going to be giving difficult time. But in fact, an officer under Trump did approve the case. So always think about the merits of the case. Don't think about the president that is in place, right? Then we have like different variety of people. Sometimes they file for an application for relief. They couldn't get the qualification. Then they apply for another application for relief and they got qualified. So do not just assume that because it's been denied that it's done, right? Your American journey is done. You will definitely have other possibility. You need to just fight for it. You need to be intelligent with it. Some people are not really intelligent with it. They just decide to not disclose it, try to do the hiding game, which doesn't work very well with the US. I had one person, and it's an interesting case. She had a DACA status. DACA is a deferred action for children that came under the age of 3 years old when they were in the US. And, DACA is something that Trump hates, right? He want to take it off. He want to strike it off, lobbying really hard for it to get done. This lady married with a French citizen and moved to France, although she was under DACA. So our assumption was that you will never get a visa to go back visit your family, right? But we applied with a waiver, and it went through. She got her visa for 10 years, a B1, B2, visiting, and she visit and go back, visit and go back. So nothing is really set, right? I have one recently, one client that retained me because he had like a very big criminal history in Paris. Huge criminal. It's a book. Like you can go for like 5 pages. Huge criminal history. And we filed. Went honestly with an officer, filed a matter of Haranka waiver. The officer reviewed it, said, hey, I cannot take a decision. I need to send it to Washington. Came back with an approval. You see, and on the other hand, I had another client, and this is the invert story. She got waived in the past and got a B1, B2. Her B1, B2 expired. We tried to waive her again and it didn't went through. It's just very, very much like depending on what's the officer, how he's feeling. Did he fight with his wife the day before? Or something, anything like this happened before or not, right? It's a feeling experience, right? It's a merit experience, a subjective experience. So all these things does matter. So you should not assume that because you get approved in the immigration benefit before that it will be approved again. And you should not assume that because the immigration benefit has been denied in the past, it will never get approved again within the same eligibility or outside the same eligibility.
It's very interesting and important to highlight that it is complex, it is uncertain, it's ever changing, and it's also a question of timing. It can take a lot of time to navigate all that, and this is why it matters so much to have some guidance and to have somebody who knows the field to help with your case. I just wanted to quickly go back to this comparison you mentioned, because not only you're helping immigrants coming to the US or changing status within the US, but you're also helping clients immigrating to Europe and to France in particular. So you're also helping clients navigate 2 different systems. Do you notice a lot of differences in the way to operate? How does it work for you? Do you have a lot of Americans approaching you because they have an interest to go to Europe?
Plenty of Americans, specifically now, they want to leave because they see the president and what he's saying and what he's doing. So they make they're scared and they're like, we want to leave and we want to go somewhere else in Europe or any country where we can seek some level of immigration status. French immigration for me is a more natural way of dealing with it, right? Because it's what I used to be doing for so many years. And I know the Ministère de l'Intérieur and the consular sections and how it works and how it intertwined itself. So it's a little bit of a more natural way of going for me. And the French immigration system is a little bit more easygoing than the American one. There is less fight on eligibility. There's still fight on eligibility. Don't take me wrong. You still need to, in order to qualify sometime for entrepreneur visa, it takes a lot of work. But it's completely different as a method of approach. So we do end up working with a lot of Americans that want to immigrate, that want to invest either 30,000 euros or 300,000 euros in France. And the feeling is great because we feel like we're contributing as well, to our home country sort of development because they need the investment badly right there. These cases are very nice. French tech cases are very nice as well. Any technological firm or innovative field where you actually contribute for them to get the visa and get the fundings there, you help them, right? It feels like you're part of their entrepreneur story, so it's great. We do a lot of digital nomad visa where people just wants to stay 1 year in France without having the inconvenience of investing money or having like a very specific legal status. So yeah, we do approach American do come to us, and a lot of American, you will be surprised to see a lot of American try to claim their French citizenship by assent, right? They say, oh, my great grandparents was a war winner, and then we had my mom did ask my grandfather, and we did find what documents, and that documents was passed on to my. So sometimes you can find some eligibility for also through naturalisation par décret, because you just have to happen parent that actually give the citizenship to this chain of, you have the chain of title, right, as we say in property law, this chain of title that comes all the way to the actual person, American person. There is also like bigger topics with Americans in connection with French law. For example, a lot of women, they had to, in 1945, abandon their French citizenship because when they were married with an American, they had to abandon their French citizenship to take the benefit of the American citizenship. But now all these rules have been abolished. So the question is, how can we reintegrate them into their rights? And it's a fascinating story where the Constitutional Council in France did rule on it, but did not fully rule on it, as French do, 50-50 all the time. And they didn't give like a proper legal pathway for them, but there is some level of pathway. And then we're working also with those type of cases, and we're trying to figure out some solution for them, for these people who did not voluntarily relinquish their citizenship. They had to, and they had to in a very specific circumstance, and therefore how we can do it for them to resume their right for citizenship. So it's very interesting.
You have to be very, very strategic as part of your work. That leads me to ask you about your book, because you published a book recently. You're passionate about immigration, obviously. What led you to write your book?
It's very simple. You see a market, you see there's nothing there, and you just fill the gap, right? I realized that for French people, there is nobody who wrote a book, comprehensive book about how to immigrate to the US. So I decided to do that and just fill in the gap. And I just made it published, and it's a good tool. I give it to some of my clients. They come to me and they ask me, do you have anything that we can read? And I give them my book. So it's a little bit of a self-serving purpose, but I do give it to them, and they find the information that they need. It's a very general information, but you end up having the information you need and where to find. It's a good introduction in order to get what you need, right? So for example, a person that do not know whether he qualify for O visa or E visa, he can just read the book through it and he will see the eligibility criteria, and at least he can try to see if he qualify or not.
So we talked about qualification, we talked about the different pathways, we talked about how culturally different the systems are. But if someone is trying to build a life across borders today and come to the US, what should they understand that most people don't, according to you?
That's a good question. I think they should understand that it's not going to be a random immigration. They need to come prepared, right? And they need to consult ahead of time a lawyer, ahead of time, and make some consultation, check out all those different visa possibilities, because there's not that many. And even when they are, you do not necessarily qualify as a matter of law. So you need to really research the details and the differences and all that. Try to find a lawyer also that understands your situation. So for example, a French person will have a tendency to understand better or to work better with a lawyer that is French, or to have an understanding of how French do operate, as a general methodology, right? Because believe it or not, the French have a certain level of methodology that they're going to follow, a pattern that they're going to follow when it comes to immigration. And so that the fact that we understand that pattern, we can tell them, look, I understand what you mean, but this is the right way to do it. And Pakistani people have a completely under different software of thinking about like how we're going to approach the immigration, and then you having that cultural background will help. So that's why also, in the US you have a lot of lawyers that speak all those different languages, right? And they all from all those variety of background. And I think honestly, if you're a Cuban, for example, might as well go to a Cuban lawyer, right? That understand where you're coming from, what you're gonna be doing, and all that. So it does mean something for you to go to the lawyer that speaks the same language, or have the at least understand your method of thinking or pattern of thinking. I think take your time, don't rush it. Go to a lawyer ahead of time, very much ahead of time, and don't come last minute. Hey, I have this, and can you deal with it? Generally, it's not good. It's not good for your wallet because you're going to pay a lot. It's not good for the quality of work you're going to produce, and it's not good as well for your own self because you're constantly stressed, right? Doing stuff last minute. So do come prepared. Do come with a certain game plan, right? And that game plan will happen only with a lawyer that will help you draft that game plan. So do talk to a lawyer. I think that's my advice.
And I would even add, because I went through this, the immigration pathway can be quite intimidating. There's a lot of noise. It's easy to get frustrated, to lose hope, or to feel that, to feel that you need to be supported in order to move forward. So it can be extremely important to just have the first discussion with an attorney to at least feel that what you're doing is the right thing to do. And because it's not only about work, it's also personal life. So it's a very, very important decision. It's very important to be prepared in order to be successful. As if that was such an insightful discussion. I think, especially right now, we hear a lot of things about how promising America is for entrepreneurs, for young professional, for a student to come here, and for families to join each other. But this is also a very challenging path. So many things are happening, and it's definitely needed to clarify what's going on in order to have agency. Is there anything you would like to add to this discussion before we end this episode?
No, I wish everybody that wants to come to the US best of luck, or anybody that wants to go to France best of luck. But again, only advise be prepared, game plan, and have a lawyer. I think that's the final word.
Thank you so much, Asif. And obviously, we'll put the information down below regarding Asif. If you want to contact him, if you want to read his book, and what a fabulous episode. Thank you so much to the
Thank you.
audience. Let's continue with the next guest. Have a good one.